Night is coming. The light of day lingers as if reluctant to give in to the darkness, but I can feel it steadily approaching, stealthy as a cat stalking its prey from the shadows. Sitting on my balcony high above the sea, I have a clear view of the western horizon and the setting sun. The seabirds have all moved inland to roost for the night, and the water is calm. There are no waves to speak of, only gentle rolls in the ripple-covered water. I can hear its breath-like sighs on the sand, with occasional slurps from the rocks below. A soothing rhythm, lulling the world to slumber. On the horizon, a band of pillowy clouds filters the harsh glow of the sun. Fading red dust seems to pour from the clouds like rain, spreading across the water to the north and south where it fades to gray. The tops of the clouds are highlighted, giving rise to soft, puffy boils of brilliant white edged by golden yellow behind a darker gray facade. As the sun moves lower, the glow above the clouds intensifies. Bands of light reach toward the water below like fingers probing the place where they shall soon rest. Slowly they widen as if becoming hands, supporting themselves upon the water as the sun slowly lowers itself below the clouds. A large glowing ball is sinking from the clouds. I watch the setting sun, knowing full well I do not intend to see its return. I am weary and no longer want to continue with this mundane and useless life. Countless failures, disappointments, and a never-ending travail of mediocrity stack up in my mind, reminding me that I am nothing. Even worse than nothing, my life's purpose has seemed to me to be that of a stepping stone for the success of others. I can almost hear the sizzle as the burgundy orb of the sun settles into the water in a shimmering puddle of glowing light. It stretches a tentacle of gold-rimmed orange across the water toward me, slowly, steadily reaching, almost as if it is beckoning me to join with it and promise to remain until it returns to me in the morning. Closing the distance from the horizon to the beach before me, I feel warmth as it crawls across the sand and up the walls of the building to me. Then suddenly a chill as the sun disappears in a bright flash and the light quickly withdraws, slipping over the horizon like a trailing tail. Rays of bright light cast into the darkening sky behind the clouds, like fingers grasping for purchase, but the palm of the night slowly pushes them down, closing twilight's hand over the world. I finish the liqueur and rest the glass on the table next to an empty bottle of sleeping pills. Ever so tired. I watch as the coating of thick liquid settles to the bottom and rest my eyes. It is quiet, and I feel at peace. Slowly I open my eyes. There is a chill in the air and it is dark, but I can see my empty glass and the bottle of sleeping pills on the table. Perhaps my constitution is stronger than I knew. More likely, the pills were not as powerful as I had been led to believe. Not much is what it seems these days. Looking out over the still, glassy water, I find I cannot discern the horizon. The water and sky have melted into one continuous mass of blackness. I cast my gaze upward, and to my surprise, there are no stars, no moon, no glow of light from the city I know is around me. I look around to find all is dark. I cannot see buildings in the distance, though I know they are but a stone's throw from my balcony. Nothing but blackness. I reach over my shoulders and pull my jacket around me from the back of the chair. It is cold and I am chilled. I look again to the heavens, but there is only blackness. But then, there seems to be some varying degrees of blackness. I also see some kind of movement. Shimmering? It is as if the night sky is a giant black cloth, undulating and waving like a flag in the wind. As I try to focus my gaze, the movement becomes more visible until it seems as though it's moving toward me. Closer and closer it comes, until I hear a loud rumbling as if fabric against itself. Suddenly it is upon me, and I am enveloped in folds of heavy black cloth, reeking strongly of a deep musky scent like wet leaves left in a dark cave for much too long. Then all is silent, and I no longer feel the cloth. I look up to see a dark hooded shadow standing before me. It is still very dark, but there is no mistaking the form standing before me, which is darker than the darkness surrounding us. I look to the drink and the pills on the table, and back at the imposing dark figure. A query forms at my lips. Death? I ask slowly, unsure. Yes. So I guess I did die, I ask, almost stating it as fact. Yes. Didn't quite know what to expect, I say casually. For some reason, I am unafraid. What's next? I see an arm covered in heavy sleeves reach over the table and hear him snap his fingers. A dark red candle appears, burning with an intense blue flame. Light floods the area, and I can now see clearly. Now we must speak, Death says slowly. The first thing I realize is that Death does not appear as I had always known. I cannot see his face as his head is down and covered by the hood, but he is not a skeleton carrying a scythe. Instead, he appears more like a very tall, large, very old monk in long, flowing black robes. His skin is taut on his bones, as if there's no flesh beneath, but he's not a skeleton, though the odor of his eminence is rather pungent. Okay, I hesitated. What do we need to speak of? It was not your decision, he stated, matter of fact. Which decision? I asked, confused. To die. He let the words trail off. Of course it was, I protested. No one else was involved. I ended my life because I was ready to. Death seemed to sigh as if exasperated. He reached inside his robes and pulled out a very heavy-looking bottle of green liquid and set it on the table. Next to this, he placed a silver chalice before opening the bottle and pouring some in. I was surprised when he added 2 fingers to my glass as well. When he set the bottle down, I saw it was labeled absinthe and felt sure this was the original wormwood liquor. He sipped from the chalice, setting it back on the table. I tasted cautiously, feeling my tongue go numb immediately. There is an order to life. Destiny, if you prefer, he began. Each creature has a purpose which he must fulfill before being allowed to pass on to the afterlife. You know, I started, taking another sip of the drink. I always believed that myself. I believe in God and Jesus and natural order, but somehow I doubted whether God believed in me. For no matter what I did, how much I learned, how hard I tried, I was never able to move beyond my hand-to-mouth existence. I saw others profit from my work, but I never did. That was your destiny, he confirmed. Your purpose is to learn and grow and advance others. I was becoming angry. Death had just told me I wasn't allowed to choose the time to end my seemingly meaningless life. What about me? I asked. I'm getting older, too old to do the things I once did that I'm good at. Physically unable. I've gone back to school many times, worked at new skills until I could gain no more from them, only to start again. I am weary. I wake in the morning to the same drudgery, forcing myself to take one step after another, waiting for the day to end so I may finally stop. And then, to see others living as they wish from the sweat of my labors, I'm done. But you were not done. Death raised his arm and waved it before me. As it settled down, I saw a thick ring on his hand with a protruding crest. Somehow, I knew it was a key. At the sight of the ring, the air in front of me wavered, and I began to see a vision. I was looking at myself, going to school once again. I could not tell what I was studying, but as the scene played out before me, I saw I was successful and was soon working in a place I had never seen before for someone I didn't know. I shook my head to clear the vision. I don't want to see that, I told Death. Though it seemed to be new, there was nothing different here than what I have lived up to now. I'm tired of repeating this cycle. I want to move on to something better. And what do you know of the afterlife? Death asked. How do you know it's better? Actually, I don't know anything of the afterlife, to be honest. I had to admit, I had a lot of ideas and thoughts on the matter, but I did not know. Do you remember the first time you contemplated joining the afterlife? Death asked. The purple sun. My mind slipped back in time to the spring of 1982. It was a turbulent time for me as I was caught between being a boy and a man. I had responsibilities like an adult, caring for my siblings, working a part-time job drilling water wells, and attending high school with less than the resources I needed. I was only 15. My father worked when he wanted to, spending his earnings as he pleased and running around, hardly ever at home, while my mother worked a night shift at a nursing home and spent her time off drinking to deal with her issues with my father. Most of the time, if I did not prepare a meal or wash clothes for my siblings, it would not have happened at all. Our parents were not abusive, but they were negligent. Things came to a head when my high school wanted to punish me for something I did not feel I should be punished for: missing school to tend to my sister. I refused the punishment and was summarily suspended from school until I chose to accept the punishment. I never went back, and that night, I never went home. I had to get my life straight and start living better than what my parents were providing. That day I got a job with some friends at a fast food restaurant and agreed to share expenses on an apartment with them. My parents didn't come looking for me, and I heard from my aunt, who lived in the same apartment complex as myself, that she was keeping them advised of my whereabouts. I later learned she had actually told them she was taking care of me to help purchase my freedom. One night after work, we had a party that lasted all night long. We were drinking, smoking weed, and making tea from mushrooms we'd picked from the cow pastures around town. None of us had to work for a few days, and several of us decided at dawn to go out to the bayou to go swimming at the bridge. We hitchhiked the 7 miles from town out to the bayou, close to my folks' house, and after leaving our clothes on the bank, dove off the overpass into the bayou. The sun was just coming up and the water felt amazing. After one dive from the bridge, I surfaced to see my friends sitting on the bulkhead railing, and they looked strange. In fact, everything looked strange. Everything was in shades of purple, and the sun was a giant purple disk in the sky. I wiped my eyes and looked again, but it was the same. Obviously, the mushroom tea had kicked into overdrive in my brain, and I was hallucinating. I scrambled from the water, gathering up my clothes, and started walking down the road toward my parents' house. The guys kept calling out for me, but I ignored them, as they looked to me to be a couple of demons. I wondered if the drugs weren't showing me the true nature of things around me. Finding myself alone, walking down the deserted shell road, still some 3 miles from home, I began to ponder the purpose of life and what happens after you die. I had some serious questions running through my mind, and I needed to know the answers. The drugs in my system were compounding the need to know, and I began to contemplate finding the answers. At some point, I realized I was teetering on the precipice of suicide and reined in my thoughts. I forced myself to come down from the drugs by acknowledging simple things in my surrounding, like cows, horses, and birds. By the time I reached my parents' house, I went to my old room and passed out. It was a long time before I considered even drinking after that. Yes, I remember the purple sun. I acknowledged Death's question. That was a very bad time for me. And what makes this time different? Death asked. That was nearly 40 years ago. I'm tired now, I said flatly. Life is hard, and no one cares if you're tired. They give you a hard time if they don't get what they need from you, make you feel bad about yourself and guilty for not doing for them. But no one does for me. If I don't work, I have no place to live, no food to eat or anything. If I work, I have no life, only the constant drudgery of doing what I must. What do you know of death? He asked. Tell me what you think death and the afterlife are about. In my mind, there are basically two options, I began. There is either nothing, total emptiness in which the brain turns off and I cease to exist, or there is some variation of afterlife. Go on, Death said. I watched him pour himself another drink, noticing the level of the bottle did not seem to diminish. I continued. Several times in my life, I've been put under anesthesia to have a tooth pulled or some minor surgery. Afterwards, I always contemplated what it was like. I was awake one moment, and then found myself waking and slowly coming back to my senses after the procedure. I paused for a moment. There are no memories from the time I was out. I did not have an out-of-body experience or remain aware while unfeeling. There was nothing, only darkness. If I have a soul, the drugs should not be able to affect my soul, only my physical body. So why did I experience blackness? This lends to my thoughts that there is nothing after death. If there is no afterlife, Death said slowly, then you are saying you would rather just be switched off than continue to live? Feeling nothing is much preferable to feeling pain.
Does it not frighten you that you would be no more?
Death asked.
Everything you are, your thoughts, your self-perception, just gone.
Why would it frighten me? I asked, realizing I was truly numb to feeling at the moment. If there are no thoughts or emotions, there can be no fright. Death sipped from his drink and rolled the chalice between his fingers from one hand to the other. He seemed to be lost deep in thought, though I could not see his face.
So tell me,
Death inquired,
if there is an afterlife, what do you think it's about?
I sat back hard and let out a long sigh. That's a tough one. I know what I would hope for, and I know what I've learned over my life.
Okay, start with what you would hope for,
Death said. I would hope the afterlife is a place where I would feel that all I've done was enough. That my efforts earned me the right to be amongst others with acceptance and a feeling of equality. A place where one is valued for their individual abilities and strengths. Where weakness are worked on, but not used against one's psyche. Where love and happiness abound while the emotions of life and biological concerns such as sex drive and other hormonal influences do not affect the mind. Where knowledge is freely gained and shared. I paused in thought, considering what I would want the afterlife to be, as if I could design my own. Death sat forward and placed his hands on his knees.
And what is it you have learned from life concerning the afterlife?
Death asked. God created everything. He sent his son Jesus to teach and atone for the world's sins because he loves us. I looked up, seeking Death's face to judge his expression, but saw only darkness in the hood. There are many religions, but they all say these basic things. Some don't believe in Jesus, but rather other prophets. But in all, they are all about one true God. When you die, you go into the light and come to where you were judged good and evil. This part has always troubled me.
Why is that?
Death asked. He sounded curious.
Do you think the evil deserve the same reward as the good?
No. If one is truly evil and corrupt, there's no way they can be among the good, as they exist to corrupt others. I said, trying to put my thoughts into words and not sure I was making sense. But my trouble comes with seeing what is truly evil or good. I've known a lot of people who never hurt anyone, and yet their indifference makes them seem evil. While at the same time, I've seen people who did things that were considered evil, but outwardly they seem to be good people.
Explain what you mean by doing evil while seeming to be good,
Death said. The Ten Commandments tells us we shall not kill, and reading further into our Bible, we're taught that vengeance is the Lord's. But what about the good, God-fearing man who kills another to protect his family? Is he forsaken? And what are these stories in the Bible where whole cities were slaughtered in the name of God, and the ones who did it were considered good? How do we make that determination? I finished the drink in my glass. This conversation was getting a lot deeper than I had ever gone with anyone before, and I was not sure I was not twisting my words. Death remained silent, waiting for me to continue. I was taught that God is the beginning and the end. He knows all, I continued. So if that's true, he knew I would take these pills with drink this evening. If it was not my choice to make, why did he let it happen?
Free will,
Death said. How can there be free will? I asked, looking at my glass. When Judas betrayed Jesus, it had to be that way or Jesus would not have been able to fulfill his purpose. And there was no free will for Judas. It's all so confusing to me. And that's why, if there is an afterlife, I hope it's where I can find enlightenment for all the things I don't understand. Death refilled our drinks and took a long pull from his. I sipped gingerly at the strong green drink, enjoying the taste and wondering how it was that I felt no effects from the very strong drink. I heard him take a long breath.
I cannot answer for God, for his ways are beyond even my comprehension. But I can tell you there is an afterlife. It has many variations, some like what you have described, others which I cannot describe to you because you would not understand.
He drained his chalice and placed it in the bottle back beneath his robes.
But you already know this.
I looked up at him again as he said this. How did I already know this? Had I not just explained that I believed there were two possibilities in my mind? An afterlife or nothingness? I drained the drink from my glass as I sensed my discussion with death was coming to an end. Setting it upon the table, I looked hard into the darkness of his hood and asked, how do I already know there is an afterlife? He reached up and pulled the hood back over his head, showing me his face for the first time. It was little more than a skull with dried, wrinkled skin covering it. His eyes were sunk way back into the sockets, but I could see a fiery glow within. Thin, gray lips stretched across his teeth in a wide smile as he swept out his arm to the side and indicated the floor beside my chair. Apparently, I had fallen from my chair when I died because there I lay, pale and limp in the dark night air.